Boa tarde a todos. This is Anna, co-founder of MobGeek, and I'm super happy to have our guest here, Joy Bulomawini. She is the founder of Code for Rights and a researcher at the MIT Media Lab, and I'm super excited to have Joy joining us today to tell you more about building apps for the good. Thank you, Joy. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Anna, for having me. And thank you all for tuning in to hear a bit more about Code for Rights. And I'm also hoping to share with you some tools and techniques that can help you make your ideas a reality. So to begin, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background and how it might inform some of what you're doing. So here we go. If you haven't already, please follow us at Code for Rights, and also at Jovial Joy is my personal handle on Twitter or Facebook. So my background is I'm a technologist and an entrepreneur. I've had the fortune of starting lots of different tech companies, everything from hair care technology to mobile health tech to what I'm currently doing now, which is Coding for Rights. And I've also been the beneficiary of numerous scholarships from all around the world. And in having these opportunities, I've learned some key steps that I hope to share with you to get you along your journey for starting things and also expanding what I call your surface area for opportunity so you can make your idea a reality. So switching back to my keynote here. I am an immigrant child. My parents moved from Ghana to the US, and I've grown up mainly in the US, but I think that spirit of working hard and so forth has always been ingrained as a result of my parents. And my mother is an artist and also a very generous person, and my father is a scientist, professor of medicinal chemistry. So I've grown up with service always being a core of what our family did. And I think that's really inspired me with our current work. And I think it also got me into technology, because in technology, I saw a way to blend arts and science. And in fact, at the Media Lab, I'm doing a master's in arts and sciences. So it couldn't have been any better. When I was 9 years old, I remember watching TV and seeing a robot, which you see here, called Kismet. And I was so fascinated by this machine because I'd never seen anything that looked so alive that wasn't actually a person or animal. And so I didn't realize people could do this with machines. It was happening at a place called Media Lab, and I thought maybe that's where I want to go someday. And I ended up not going to MIT to start my journey. I actually went to Georgia Institute of Technology, where I studied computer science. And I had an opportunity to work on robots and know a little bit more about technology. But what I discovered was, even as I was working on robots, and I was having a great time because we were at the intersection of social robotics and autism, I was working in a lab and I wanted to know how I could make an immediate impact, right? How would these skills help somebody, whether down the street or across the world? And so I figured that I'd need to figure out some kind of way to get out of the lab. And this journey I'm going to share with you will talk about how I got out of the lab, why I'm back in a lab, and how you can make an impact in both areas. And so I'll share the story of Swift Insights, which is a consultancy I started while I was an undergraduate at Georgia Tech. I'll share the story of Zamrise, which started while I was a Fulbright Fellow in Zambia. And then finally Code for Rights, which got started while I was also in grad school over at Oxford University. And so the first important strategy I learned in starting Swift Insights was to dare to ask. So in the beginning of 2011, I was really excited because I decided that I wanted to make an impact in African nations using mobile technology. And that's pretty much all I had, a big vision with no details. And I wasn't exactly sure how I was gonna make that happen. But I came up with a strategy. I decided that everywhere I went that year, I would show up, speak up, and stand up. And the idea was that if I had an opportunity, I would say yes. And when I went to that opportunity, I would make sure people knew what I wanted to do. And then finally, should there be a way to connect or collaborate, make sure I put myself out there for it. So the way this came to be for Swift Insights is when I was an undergraduate, I was invited to come to a talk about energy that was being given by a former astronaut. So even though the talk was at 8 a.m., which for me was really early, at that point in time, I decided to show up. But what was important was not just being there. When I arrived, people were introducing themselves. And as we went around in a circle, I said, hello, my name's Joy Bumwini. And this year, I want to make an impact in African nations using mobile technology. Well, it just so happens somebody there was working on a project in Ethiopia, and in fact had a need for a mobile app developer to work on something called trachoma. Now, I'd never heard of trachoma, but I heard Ethiopia, African nation, and I heard mobile app development. And so because I heard the two main ingredients for what I was looking for, I immediately shared my contact information and followed up about the opportunity, right? So you show up, you speak up, and then you stand up for the opportunity. And what ended up happening was that I was able to create a prototype for this organization. And in the summer of that year, I was actually able to go to Zambia to help implement a global health tech solution. And so the idea was to turn their paper-based method of seeing the effectiveness of their health campaigns into a more robust one. So with their prior method, they would go out, distribute medications, perform surgeries, et cetera, to try to eliminate trachoma, which was this neglected tropical disease. And then afterwards, they had to see how effective it was. So in order to see the effectiveness, they would do these surveys. Now these surveys, as you can see from this big stack of paper, they took a lot of time and they took a lot of space. So we created a mobile tech solution that allowed them to create the forms digitally, collect the information on mobile devices, and then aggregate all of that information. So a process that formerly took about 90 days, we essentially turned into a press of a button. Since that time, Swift Insights, which is what eventually came of this project, has been used to survey over 250,000 people in 5 different countries to combat neglected tropical disease. And this happened, why? Because I dared to ask. And I know that there might be audience questions. So if anyone has a question at this point, before I move on to the next project and the next strategy, do let me know. Anna?
Yes, I have a question from Tom Costa. He asks about the projects. He's asking about something that you talk further on, probably, but perhaps when you talk about Code for Rights, can you tell us more about how do you suggest that the projects are funded or supported and all of this? Okay. Maybe you can tell a bit about your story and how you made it happen.
Absolutely. So I'll definitely get to that. And with the Zambia story, we start getting into funding a little bit as well. All right. So let's move on then. Let me switch on back to this presentation. Okay, so I had a wonderful time in Zambia. I'm sorry, in Ethiopia, but what I noticed when I was there was that there were very few people who looked like me coding. And I was a little bothered because it almost felt like we had what I consider magic, right? We can have ideas and make them a reality. And so few people who looked like me were doing it. You know, where were the Africans? Where were the women in tech? Where was the rest of the world, right? And so I wanted to do something about it and I wasn't sure what, but I set out that I wanted to increase the participation of more diverse groups in computer science and in technology. And so my opportunity to do this came through a Fulbright Fellowship, which is an international award that funds you for 9 to 12 months to go live in a different country and implement a project. And so the project I proposed to implement was Zamrise. And going back to the presentation here for Zamrise, the idea is very similar to what MobGeek does, right? Empower youth to be creators of technology. And in this case, we were empowering Zambian youth. And so we taught courses, facilitated projects, and it would not have been possible without the support of so many great local partners. So for example, we had Bongo Hive, which was a tech innovation community group there that already had done the hard work of bringing people together who were excited and passionate about tech, much in the same way that MobGeek does. We had Asikana Network, which was an organization focused on engaging more women and girls in technology. So of course we were gonna have a good time together. And then we also had another partner called iSchool Zambia, which was a technology education company working on creating custom Android tablets that had the entire school curriculum, grades 1 to 5 in 8 local languages, and also solar power and some other considerations to give support to try to really increase the availability of education in Zambia more broadly. And so as a result of working with these partners, we were able to develop a curriculum, the Zamrise curriculum, which we then used to train students to learn about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc., so they could make mobile apps. And when the ZegiPads, these custom Android tablets that were developed for the primary school market were released, our students actually had their apps preloaded on thousands of ZegiPads, and they could go to the largest mall in the main capital city and say, this is an app that I worked on. And I thought it was really important because until then, a lot of the development was being outsourced to Croatia. And the thought was that you didn't necessarily have the local talent to do it. And so being able to show that the local talent was there was really important. Now, something else that came out of this experience in being in Zambia was working on the Women's Rights app. I came in March, which is Women's Month, and it just so turned out that the women wanted to create a Women's Rights app. I'd done all sorts of other projects, as you saw, the global health stuff and things in robotics. Rights were not in my mind at all, but this is what they said they wanted to create. And in the process of creating it, it helped me to establish a curriculum, which we then used for other projects. And I'm happy to announce that it's available to all Zambia Airtel subscribers through Facebook's internet.org. So about an estimated 3 million people have access to this Women's Rights app. And the idea is to let people know what their rights are, see what it looks like if it's affirmed, and also have the relevant contact information or actions to take if these rights are violated. And so this really formed the core of what is now a huge part of Code for Rights. Now, there was an earlier question about how we got this funded, right? And in the case of the Fulbright Fellowship, the US State Department paid for me to be a Fulbright scholar. So essentially, I used all of my time to work on Zamrise, more or less free. Free for some, not so free for others. But in order to implement our projects and to train people, etc., actually to first fund Zamrise, did an Indiegogo campaign where we raised about $11,000. And it took a lot of work, and it was the result of having a lot of great people working for us to see if people would donate. And so this is a thank you video that we did to those who supported the vision in Zambia. And I think what's really important here is that The Women's Rights app was made possible because of local partnerships and global support. And I think that intersection is what we're going to be seeing more of as we move towards to Code for Rights. So now if we can go to the YouTube video, I would like to show you what we accomplished with Zamrise. So Anna, if you can just let me know when you're ready.
Yes, it's there.
Okay. Thank you, Indiegogo supporters. I'm here in Botswana having a wonderful time. Not on your dollar, don't worry. We use that money for the ice lab. But we're so excited to have your support. Everything we've wanted to do and more is finally happening. We've done trainings, we've done impact projects, and we now have an ice lab that will be opening very soon. All thanks to you. So I cannot say thank you enough. You guys are awesome. You're making my dream possible so the dreams of others can be possible. All right. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All good.
Okay.
So that was kind of a montage of what we were able to do in 7 months in Zambia. And this might also be another good stopping point for questions, but it's after this experience and seeing the type of impact we could have when people were empowered to create technology for the issues they cared about and for their communities is really what inspired me to push this even further to what's now Code for Rights. So if we have any questions, I can answer them now, or I can continue on with the story of Code for Rights and then field more questions at the end.
Oh, Joy, we have someone asking for the link, the URL to this video that you've just showed, because it seems that it didn't show up for everyone.
Okay, I don't know if I can share that just right now. Let me get the back channel for it, but I can definitely here link, save link as, copy link address. Okay, so I have shared it now with you.
Yes.
And hopefully you can share that with the
Sure.
needed person. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. All right, well, if there are no questions at this point, I will go ahead and move towards Code for Rights. And so with Code for Rights, the strategy that I learned that was really important was to dare to change. So first there was dare to ask, right? There's a project you want to work on, there are people you want to collaborate with, there are resources you need. With Code for Rights, I had to dare to change, because right after I left Zambia, I was awarded a scholarship to go to the UK. And so I was in a really fortunate position where I'd been awarded a Fulbright fellowship, and then right afterwards, I'd been awarded a Rhodes Scholarship. So 2 weeks after leaving Zambia, I went back to the US where my family home is. I then went to Oxford, England to start graduate studies. And it was a great opportunity. I did a master's in learning and technology, but I couldn't help but feel that I had some unfinished business, because there was all of this momentum that got started, right? And I was in school again. So I wanted to figure out a way to push forward what we started in Zambia. And so after I did my master's degree through a scholarship program called the Rhodes Scholarship, I then proposed to change the scholarship. And generally what happens is if you're awarded a scholarship, you go and you have 2 to 3 years to study. I did a 1-year master's degree, and I had an opportunity to do another master's degree. But instead of doing another master's degree, I thought using that time to push forward ZamRise and put it on a bigger stage where it was about what we did in Zambia and included even more people, would be a great use of time. And so I sent a proposal to the Rhodes Trust, and hopefully you'll be able to see what this proposal pitch was, but it was to create a year of service. So instead of spending another year in academic study, I would spend this year trying to establish Code for Rights as a social enterprise. And the business model would be that we would provide courses, but we would also have impact projects. And these impact projects would be for particular clients. So our first impact project we did was for Oxford University, and we were able to work on an app that's called First Response. And so that was about, let me do the conversion, in USD, it was about a 5-figure kind of contract to get that going, but we were able to do it in such a way where the courses were free for the students. So if this permits, I would like to share the proposal behind the year of service, which is what enabled Code for Rights to be established. So going back to YouTube, if you're ready, let me know, Anna.
So Joy, I'm not sure if people can see our YouTube video because some haven't, but we can try again.
Okay, let's give it maybe 15 seconds, and then if it's not working, I'll just talk through it.
Okay, let's do it. So, hello everyone.
Hello.
So it seems like the video is not being showed to everyone, but I've shared the link using our the chat for the webinar. So everyone has the link there. So Joy, would you mind telling us a bit about the video?
Oh, sure. So the video is an overview of the year of service. And the idea was to extend what we started in Zambia, working on the Women's Rights app, and make it available worldwide. So we wanted to share the curriculum, and then we also wanted to work with another group of women to make an impact app. And then finally, because we'd been doing series of workshops and these workshops were location specific, we wanted to create an online training series so that people who weren't necessarily co-located, right, could have access to these resources. So similar to how MobGeek operates. And so that was the year of service with the specific focus on rights, and women's rights became a forefront, a focal point. So after the Rhodes Trust said yes and made a change to a 110-year process of doing things, which is you come to Oxford, you get your degree, you come to Oxford, you get your degree, it became you come to Oxford and you have this opportunity to do a year of service. And I'm happy to announce that it's now an option for other people who are awarded this scholarship as well. And so let me go back here to the presentation. So many moving elements. So what I started out with in Oxford was refining the Code for Rights curriculum. And so as I mentioned earlier, it was established in Zambia, but I wanted to update it with the newer tools that were out there, because we started in 2013, it was now 2015, and as you can imagine, things change. And so the process I established with Code for Rights involves 3 C's: community, content, and code. And the idea was to find a community organization that already cared about a particular issue, help provide the coding skills, right? And also partner with subject matter experts to work on the content. And in this way, we were able to come together to work on what is called the First Response app. So we did a series of workshops and brainstorming sessions in Oxford. And when I asked them what they wanted to create, they wanted to focus on the huge issue of campus sexual assault, which is unique to the UK, and unfortunately is an issue that impacts people all over the world. And so they came in, they learned the tech skills, and then the students were able to code individual pages for the app, which we released in October, mid-October. So if you are interested, you can go to firstresponseoxford.org to download it for yourself for either iOS and Google Play. And since launching the First Response app, we've also had the opportunity to create our online training program, which is to say, okay, now that the curriculum has been up to date, how do we make this information more widely available so other people can create rights-focused apps, or also learn the brainstorming session, how you collaborate with community organizations and so forth. So that's what leads us to our final video. And I'm so sad you're not able to see this I don't know if it's everybody or some people, but maybe we can share the link. But this is a preview of the training series that is about to be released. So let me know if maybe at least some of this would be shared. I'm trying to get some feedback. Are you able to hear either one or see either one?
So I'm asking them.
Yeah. Or we can also share the link here. Let me copy that link address to you. Okay, so playing it from YouTube, but not sure if this is something that people can see or not. If it's been switched to the YouTube.
Yeah, this YouTube feature, it's not working for them. Let me see, perhaps. I shared the link to them now.
Okay.
Hey, yeah, I'm sharing the link. So everyone, you can try to watch this video. I can give you what do you think, Joy, if we give them a few minutes to watch it?
Yes, or let me see. Yeah, maybe a minute and a half kind of thing.
Okay.
All right. Well, I hope that at some point, if you were not able to watch the video, that you do take a little bit of time. It's a preview which shows the training series we're getting ready to launch, which is called Journey to Code. And we teach through the story of creation, right? Because we believe that who creates is just as important as what's created. And so we go and we talk about why we did a particular app. And as we're going through that, we're also teaching you how to code. So it's learning to code through story and through the idea of making an impact project that would be relevant to your community. So that is currently what I am doing with Code for Rights. And as mentioned before, I'm also a graduate researcher at the Media Lab. So I've moved back to the US. I'm currently in Cambridge, and I'm part of the Civic Media Group. And we work on creating tools and communities to help people share information for civic action. And so I do a lot of work in that space, and I'm taking classes and back in the same situation where trying to make impact while in a lab.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Joy.
Yeah, so sorry about the videos. We really care about our production quality, and so you have footage from Zambia, from Botswana, from the UK. We have our graphics designers and everything. So if you do have a chance, please do watch the videos.
Yes, I've shared with them over the chat here, and I'll also send them over to all the people who have subscribed to watch you talk today. I've watched all of those videos, so I love them, and I'm sure you enjoy. And I have some questions from our audience. There are questions here. So let me see here. How can we start? Just reloading.
Oh, no worries.
There are new questions.
Yeah.
I remember a question from Anna Maria. So she's asking if Code for Rights would be interested, or would be an interesting topic to cover cyberbullying against women, somehow preventing women from being target of revenge porn. And so, like, I'm not sure if that's a topic that a lot of people are familiar with, but it's she explains to us when a couple exchanges pictures, like the people call sexting, and after the relationship, after breaking up, the guy just shares those intimate videos or pictures out online. Is it something that you think would fit Code for Rights?
So Code for Rights is broad. The idea is to give you a set of tools for addressing something you care about. And obviously cyberbullying is a huge issue, right? And revenge porn as well. And so what Code for Rights would do in this situation is we either work with organizations or we provide individuals with tools to build the skills they want to address a given problem. So with Code for Rights, if you came and you said, we want to do a cyberbullying app, etc., the first thing would be, one, making sure we understand what the issue is. And usually we'll do this in partnership with community collaborators, right? So maybe an organization that has some knowledge in this. And we would also bring together members of the community who care to address it. Then we have a brainstorm session, right? Where we think about what makes sense. And our motto is apps must fill gaps, right? So if there's no real gap, there shouldn't necessarily be an app. And basically we work on actionable knowledge, which is there something that we could provide in terms of information or resources that can help address this problem? And as part of the issue, people not knowing what resources are available to them, people not being aware that this is an issue. So that is where we would start. And sometimes the answer is an app will be developed. Sometimes it's we put more resources into other approaches for addressing it. So the answer is it truly depends, but the idea is to equip you with the skills and the process, right? So you can start understanding how do you create something that's going to be meaningful and beneficial.
Great, thank you. And everyone else, like anyone else who wants to ask another question, please feel free to. We have some other questions here. Let me see who's next. I have Leo. Leo's asking, if I don't have any experience with coding, can I still join Code for Rights? Can I learn the basics through the website?
Absolutely. That's the point of Code for Rights. We literally start with the blank screen. Our philosophy is that anyone who's willing, right, can learn how to code. And we try to provide a process that doesn't assume you have any background, but does assume there's something in this world you care about, right? And based on that interest, that's where we start. So if you're just interested in learning skills because you hear tech is an interesting thing to do, or if you have an idea, we welcome everybody. And basically we have two main groups we tend to attract. And so we have engaged citizens, people who might already have a topic or something they really care about, maybe something like cyberbullying that they want to address. And then we also have emerging coders, who are people who want to gain tech skills, and they want to use those tech skills to create something that's meaningful, right? And if you're in any of those groups, you got a pulse, right? That's basically what we look for. So if you go to codeforrights.org, you can sign up right now for our early access program. And we literally take you from a blank screen with ideas and show you how you get that into an app for your community.
Lovely. So we have some beginners here, and it's a great way to learn how to code, everyone. One of the videos that Joy has showed, and you can check it out later, actually shows a bit more about the learning, how the classes are, right, Joy?
Right.
Yeah, so I'll share it all with you on an email after the webinar. And we have another question, let me see, from Carlos. Carlos is asking, what were your major challenges when you got your project out in the world? What were those?
Is there a particular project or just in general? And I can speak more broadly, and then if he follows up to say it was a specific project, I can speak to that as well.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm.
So with all of these projects, one of the hardest things I've found is finding the funding, right? Or the resources or the model, etc. The theme you might notice through these projects that I've shared is I was using resources that were oftentimes meant for something else, right? So for example, when I got Zamrise started, it's because I was doing a Fulbright fellowship, right? At Oxford, when I started Code for Rights, I was actually using money that was meant for the scholarship the second year, right, as my stipend to get it started. And so having to be really creative about the ways in which you get things started. But the other thing I love about code is that the barrier to entry is really low. So for example, with the women at Asikana Network, we came together, and because we had the time, right, we developed the Women's Rights app, which we made freely available to all of these Zambian Airtel subscribers. And yes, there was somebody who was paying for the space we were in, a community organization. It was Bongo Hive, but having that ability to gather somewhere with people who care, which is the opportunity that MobGeek is providing, right? And then being able to work with those people is a huge asset that you have when you're in a field like technology. Another thing I found challenging is when you start working on topics that people are uncomfortable with. Not everybody necessarily wants to collaborate, or not everybody will back up what they say they care about with the actions that they have. And so this is a lesson in making sure that you work with people who really care about the issues that you care about and that you have similar values. The other challenging thing, I think, for any project to get off the ground in a larger way is team building. How do you find the right people? How do you move things forward? With all of these projects that I've presented, they wouldn't have been possible without great partnerships, great teammates. And the question is, how do you get those teammates? For me, I found working on class projects, right, or smaller groups in kind of a controlled environment, so whether it's at a place like Bongo Hive, etc., would increase the opportunity to meet people who had similar interests, and then to also see if we work well together, because not all teams mesh, and that can sometimes be the kiss of death for a project. So making sure you take time to make sure you're exposed to other people and that you also know that those people and you work well together.
Perfect. Thank you, Joy. So let me see. We have more questions here. Maybe we have time for 3 more, perhaps?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So Carlos is asking you, what are your plans for after MIT? Like after you graduate from MIT, do you have any plans already? You have just started. He probably doesn't know that you have joined MIT like a few months ago, right? But anyways, if you have plans for the future for after that.
Sure. My near-term plans are survival because I am a first-year graduate student. But longer term, I view myself as a creative technologist, and I view my life's mission as to show compassion through computation. So overall, with the different opportunities I've had and so forth, the main takeaway has been working towards how to code with consequence and providing more opportunities for others to do the same. So I see Media Lab as a place that will enable this vision to come into fuller fruition. And post Media Lab, I'd like to continue what I do, which is I'm an entrepreneur, right? That's what every time, it doesn't matter. As you've seen, I'm 25 right now, and I've already started quite a few things. It's kind of into me. So I don't really think that's going to change. And I'd like to do it on a bigger and broader scale and impact more people. So I would love for Code for Rights to one day have a curriculum that's translated into many different languages and has a process that enables people who have ideas to make them happen, particularly ideas that empower the rest of the world so everybody can thrive and, you know, really live the best life they potentially could have.
Great. So I know like surviving grad school is like priority number one. But
Grad school again, right?
I know. It's an amazing experience. So I have a comment from Tom Costa. He mentioned that he has already created a game to showcase the history of Black people in society. And he asked me to share it with you. It's a website. I'm sending it over. It's called afrocasciense.webflow.io. That's the URL.
Yes, I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah, so he mentioned that he created himself. And Tom, if you want to mention something else, it's already on Joy's hands. So just checking it out.
Yes.
And I'm not sure.
I was actually just watching a TED Talk, and it was talking about the African diaspora and how we know so little about Black culture and Black history in other places. And the lady specifically mentioned that in Brazil, right, she only knew one name, and it was a soccer player, right? And what might we be able to do to actually share more of the culture and so forth. So I was just watching that yesterday, and this might be part of the answer, right? Having people who are there of the culture sharing what they know with the rest of the world.
Lovely, lovely. I'm gonna check it out as well. So I checked that Afrocascience's website is in Portuguese, but we can Google Translate, so to have a glimpse.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so and so Tom mentioned that he'll contact Code for Rights. Yes, lovely.
Absolutely. joy@codeforrights.org.
Okay, I'll share your email with them. And I have Samara's question. Samara, she thanks for your talk. She said it's a very inspiring work. I was wondering what difficulties you have encountered along the way. It's similar to what you've mentioned before. I'm not sure if Samara was around, and how you've dealt with them. She has a project. She's working with teenage gamers to teach them how to code in the slums of Rio de Janeiro. I know this project. Cool.
Oh, can you tell me a little bit more about the project? That sounds fascinating.
So she, perhaps that's what all she says. Samara, if you can add some extra info on the project. So,
and are there any particular challenges that she's having right now?
Yes.
That I might be able to speak towards?
Definitely. She asks, she tells us about a particular challenge. The main issue we face is that they don't believe in their own capabilities. It takes a huge effort and a long time for them to acquire this confidence and to keep going. Have you had any experiences with that before? Any tips?
Absolutely. So I mentioned earlier that I did my undergraduate at Georgia Tech, and they actually had a program that was for underrepresented youth to teach them gaming testing. And the project was called Glitch. And there's been a lot of wonderful work just done in this space of teaching youth gaming and so forth, and also overcoming issues of confidence and also representation. So going back to what you're saying, this is a huge part of why Code for Rights exists. And that realization when I was in Ethiopia coding under mosquito net, why weren't there more people like me, you know, doing this kind of work? And it's difficult when you don't see yourself represented, right? What you don't see is hard to imagine how you can be that person. And so part of what we're trying to do is increase diversity in instructional media and also increase the type of stories that are shared about who is in technology. And part of that is expanding the possibility space, right? Because right now technology looks like this small little dot, less than a percentage of the world, you know, engaged in something like making mobile apps. And what would that look like if you saw more people who looked like you actually doing something? So what I try to do is I share examples of people I know who I find inspiring, like Greg Gunn, African-American gentleman who started an ed tech company in the US that sold for over $300 million, and he's investing in other ed tech companies. Paul Judge, Black PhD, who's working on doing another tech startup. I think it's his third or fourth, right? That's been a successful exit and so forth. Or I might point out to somebody who's from Brazil, how I've met Anna and how she's really inspiring with the work that she does, right? So just trying to have those community examples, and then also making sure that you have an attitude of encouragement, because it can also go both ways, where if someone isn't as enthusiastic about it, you also pull away, right? And then you both drift apart. And sometimes it's having that person who continuously believes in you, even when you don't believe in yourself, that can help push people forward. And the other thing I think that's really important is to realize different people have different skill sets, different ways of learning, and different ways of engaging. And there are many ways that you can contribute to making meaningful technology. And there are many ways you can contribute to society that don't necessarily always involve technology. And so making sure that, one, you have a population that is technically literate, right? So you understand the tools that are being used and what the possibilities are, and then you marry it to what you want to do, what you're passionate about, and the skills that you have or want to further develop. And I think that's something that right now is being missed a little bit, because the idea, at least for Code for Rights, isn't to say everyone should be a technologist. It's to say, here's a process for making ideas reality. We're doing it with mobile tech because the tools of creation are more accessible, right? But this is not the only pathway. But however, going through this sort of process can actually give you that confidence to try other things. And so I think it's really important to keep those things in mind.
So lovely. I have this follow-on from Samara, the one like our attendee here who teaches coding in the slums of Rio de Janeiro. She said that her project is called Joga Cria. I'm sending you the Facebook page.
Okay.
And she was super excited to share it with you. And she's looking for people who are interested in creating their own games.
I just liked it right now.
Nice. And she's getting grouping up people and just learning together. And she's super excited to share it with you. Joga Cria.
I'm super excited to see this. This is the best part, right? When you see people going out and making something happen in their community. And even just from this photo I'm seeing right here on the cover, I wish I knew Portuguese to know what's going on. We have people huddled, look like they're engaged in something interesting. No, this looks really good.
So the Joga Cria is like two words, like joga means to play and cria means to create. So I think it's a combination of playing and creating. So super exciting.
Yes. And I'm seeing some young girls holding up game cards from, I'm just going through the Facebook photos right now. Now this looks great.
Yeah, cool. I'm seeing that too. It looks like a board game, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I hear somebody, I see somebody's comment like zombies wearing ties. So apparently it's fun. Yeah, so I think we have the last question here from Leo.
All right.
Leo, he's asking, can we exchange experiences with other users through Code for Rights website? Because sometimes we want to have feedback to help us develop our projects. We think because our first idea might be good, but we're not so sure if how can we make it better. Can we talk to people through Code for Rights?
Got it. No, that aspect of community feedback and continual iteration and refinement of ideas, it's so important. And even with the first response app that we just released, we had series of community feedback sessions where we would literally print out the pages of the apps and have people write comments or go through it, etc. And so this is a huge part of the process and something we want to facilitate with the Code for Rights process. Right now, we're focused on making sure that the curriculum is solid and accessible. The next phase is then providing support behind that curriculum, right? So whether it's mentorship or feedback sessions. We used to have app doc sessions, right? So does your app need a little help? We're here for you kind of situation. So we'll definitely be exploring ways of working with each other, collaborating, and just, for example, I love all of these links that were sent. Please do send me more. It's great to see what other people are doing and seeing if there are ways to help or just enjoying it and yeah, sharing it with others.
Thank you so much, Joy. It was great to hear more about your projects, and our audience was super excited. We had many comments and questions. I tried to cover all of them, and if anyone has any further questions, can they reach out to you somehow or to your team? How should they do it?
Absolutely. Do, first of all, sign up for Code for Rights by going to codeforrights.org, get on our early access list, and that way when we start to release different features, you'll be the first to know and be able to get free course and all of that. And then if you have any questions for me, you can send it to me on our Facebook page. You can go to our website and send me contact there, or you can email me directly at joy@codeforrights.org.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Obrigada. Vamos mandar depois esses detalhes. We'll send the details over email later on. Thank you. Thank you, Joy. Bye-bye.
Bye. Obrigado.